wolf cub got lost in the rain and was helped by a kind girl, but many years later she had to kneel down and cry because of her actions. Rain lashed down like silver curtains, engulfing Mira's small house. Tall trees outside the window swayed violently, like giant hands groping in the darkness. Mira pulled the woolen blanket higher, trying to find some warmth in the cold night. Her house stood quietly on the edge of the forest, isolated from the noisy world outside. Mira had always loved this tranquility, the peace of nature, the melodious sounds of insects on summer nights, and even the rain pouring down on the wooden roof each winter. Suddenly, amidst the howling wind and the rain beating against the windows, another sound crept in, small, trembling, and full of despair. Mira raised her head, listening. It could just be a broken branch or the cry of a lost bird, but then the sound came again, like a fragile plea in the midst of the storm. Without hesitation, she put down the blanket and hurried to the door. Cold wind rushed in as Mira gently opened the door, making her shiver. In the flash of lightning illuminating the sky, she saw a small figure, a soaked creature, curled up in a ball right in front of the doorstep. Mira held her breath. It was a wolf cub. Its grey fur was plastered down with water, clinging to its gaunt body. It trembled all over, its yellow eyes shining with utter fear. It didn't run away, didn't hiss or growl menacingly like a typical wild wolf. It just lay there, exhausted, its eyes looking up at her as if searching for a last glimmer of hope. Mira hesitated. Wolves weren't dogs. A lost dog could be rescued and nurtured, but a wolf was different. It carried within it the instincts of the green forest, a predator born to be free, not to live under the roof of humans. But then when she looked into its eyes, the eyes of a tiny creature on the verge of being swept away by the freezing storm, her heart clenched slightly. Without any more hesitation, Mira knelt down, gently reaching out her hand. Her fingertips touched the wolf's cold, wet fur. It trembled but did not resist. "It's okay, little one," she whispered, her voice as gentle as a lullaby. Slowly, Mira lifted the small creature up, wrapping it in the warm woolen blanket. It went limp in her arms, too weak to react. She felt its faint breathing, the fragility of a life being tested by the merciless weather. Gently she closed the door, shutting out the raging storm. In the warmth of the wooden house, Mira gently placed the wolf cub on the rug next to the fireplace. It was still trembling, its breath faint, its eyes half closed as if exhausted after a long, stormy journey. Mira quickly grabbed a dry towel, gently wiping away the water from its light grey fur. "Little one, where did you come from?" she whispered, as if expecting an answer. But of course it just lay still, silently enduring her care. After drying it off, Mira ran into the kitchen, finding some warm milk and a small bowl. She wasn't sure if a wolf would drink milk, but at least it needed something in its stomach to sustain its life. She returned, kneeling next to the small creature curled up on the rug. "Want to try some milk?" She gently placed the bowl in front of it. The wolf cub didn't react. It just opened its eyes a little, its yellow eyes fluttering slightly as if it had recognized her presence, but its body remained still. Mira was worried. It might be too weak, or worse, it might not make it through the night. Wasting no time, she dipped a finger into the milk and gently touched its snout. A very small movement. Its tongue lightly licked her finger. Mira was overjoyed. "All right, little one, you have to try." Gradually, she helped it drink one drop of milk at a time. After a few minutes, its breathing became slower, no longer as rapid as before. Mira sighed with relief. At least she had helped it gain a little strength to fight the cold night. She sat there for a long time, watching the small creature gradually drift off to sleep. The fireplace radiated warmth. The flames danced on the wooden walls, creating a peaceful space amidst the storm still raging outside. Mira reached out and gently stroked its soft fur. She had never thought she would one day nurture a wolf, a creature of the deep forest, wild and not belonging to her world. But tonight, as she watched it curled up in the woolen blanket, she knew that she couldn't have turned her back on it. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the window, Mira woke up with a strangely warm feeling. She turned to look at the wolf cub. It was still lying there, but this time, its yellow eyes were wide open, staring intently at her. She smiled. "Good morning, little one." It wasn't trembling anymore. Instead, there was a new light in its eyes, a light of life. Mira gently reached out her hand. This time it didn't flinch. Instead, it shifted slightly, its small head resting in her palm. In that moment, Mira knew that she was no longer alone. "I'll call you Kiba," she whispered. "Because you're strong, like a warrior." As time passed, Kiba gradually recovered. In the early days, it was still weak, only able to lie curled up on the rug by the fireplace. But with Mira's patient care, it quickly regained its strength. After only a week, Kiba was able to stand firmly on its little legs. It became more curious, sniffing and exploring every corner of the wooden house, wagging its grey tail whenever Mira called its name. Mira couldn't deny that she had become more attached to Kiba than she thought she would. In the morning, she would wake up with Kiba curled up beside her, its sparkling yellow eyes looking at her with absolute trust. When she worked in the garden, it would trot along behind, sometimes playfully pouncing on fallen leaves, sometimes just quietly observing her as if it wanted to learn. But Mira knew Kiba was not a dog. It was a wolf. Every day it grew bigger and stronger. Its legs were longer, its steps more decisive. Its teeth were sharper, its eyes increasingly keen. Sometimes Mira caught Kiba looking out the window, its ears perked up as if listening to the call of the deep forest. She began to worry. One morning, when Mira was preparing Kiba's meal as usual, she noticed something was different. The food bowl was still full, untouched. She looked around. Kiba wasn't lying on the rug, nor was it under the kitchen table as usual. The front door was slightly ajar. A cold wind blew in, making Mira shiver. She stepped outside. In the pale morning sunlight, Kiba stood there, right at the edge of the forest, as its yellow eyes gleamed with something distant. Mira slowly approached. "Kiba?" It turned its head when it heard her voice, but didn't run to her as usual. Instead, it just stood still, its eyes filled with a question that Mira couldn't read. For the first time, Mira felt the distance between her and Kiba. She knelt down, opening her arms wide. "Come here." Kiba hesitated for a few seconds, then finally ran over, nuzzling its head into her lap. Mira hugged it tightly, but in her heart, a growing unease began to grow. It was a wolf, and one day it might leave. Mira began to notice the increasingly obvious signs. Kiba no longer clung to her all day long like before. Sometimes it disappeared for hours in the forest behind the house. At first, Mira was afraid it had gotten lost, but no. Each time it returned. But something had changed. Once, Mira happened to see Kiba stalking a small rabbit in the garden. It wasn't chasing it in a naive way like before. Instead, it was silent, lowering itself, moving as smoothly as a real predator. Only when Mira called its name did it startle, back away and run to her. As if forgetting what it had just been doing, Mira felt a vague anxiety. She loved Kiba as a part of her family, but would love be enough to change the wild instincts that were deeply ingrained in every drop of its blood? One night, Mira was reading a book by the fireplace when Kiba suddenly jumped up, its ears perked up. It stood silently, tense, as if it had heard a sound from afar. And then, Mira heard it. A long howl echoed from the forest. Her heart clenched. She turned to look at Kiba. It was also looking at her, but its yellow eyes shone with an indescribable inner turmoil. It was the call of its own kind. Mira squeezed her hand. The howling, echoing from the green forest, still haunted her, like a reminder that Kiba didn't belong here. It was a wolf, carrying within it the blood of the wild, and no matter how much she loved it, could she keep it with her forever? Kiba curled up at the foot of the bed, its breath steady in its sleep. But even in its dreams, its body twitched slightly, as if chasing something in its imagination. Mira reached out, gently stroking its soft grey fur. But that night, the thing Mira feared most happened. In the middle of the night, Mira woke up with a start when she heard a noise outside. A rustling sound, then the soft clinking of metal. She sat bolt upright, her heart pounding. Someone was out there. Kiba also sensed the abnormality. It lifted its head, its ears perked high, its whole body tense. In just a moment it jumped up and darted to the door like an arrow. "Kiba, wait!" Mira whispered, but it was too late. She quickly grabbed a flashlight, gently opened the door. Outside, the faint moonlight shone down on the front yard. Cold wind whistled through the trees, making everything seem gloomy and tense. She shone the flashlight across the yard, and her heart clenched. A strange man was standing next to the empty wooden cage in the backyard. He was trying to break the lock on the door, seemingly intending to break in, but he didn't realize he was being watched. In the blink of an eye, CUB rushed forward like a gust of wind. It didn't growl, didn't warn, but was just silent, decisive like a true predator. When the man heard the footsteps, he startled and turned around, and met the fiery yellow eyes of the wolf rushing toward him. His scream tore through the night. He fell backward to the ground, frantically retreating as CUB blocked his way, baring its teeth, growling a deep, menacing sound. Mira rushed outside. "CUB, back down!" Her voice rang out, but CUB didn't take its eyes off the stranger. Its breathing was heavy, its whole body tense, as if with just one wrong move it would attack immediately. The man trembled, stammering something, then hurriedly got up, staggering as he fled into the forest. Mira held her position, her heart pounding in her chest. She turned to CUB, but when she looked into its eyes, she realized something. A wild, primal light. CUB had protected her, but it had also just proven that the hunting instinct within it had never disappeared. Rumors about the events of that night spread quickly. The people in the village began to whisper. Some people expressed admiration, saying that CUB had saved Mira from the thief, but most were afraid. A wolf can't be tamed. Today it protects her, tomorrow who knows what it will do. It's a wild animal, it can't be trusted. Mira heard all those comments, but she couldn't refute them, because deep down she also had her own worries. CUB had grown up. It was no longer the small wolf trembling in the rain that day. It was strong, agile, sharp, and dangerous in the way that wild animals are. Even though she loved it with all her heart, could her love change its nature? Mira sat by the window, silently watching CUB curled up at her feet. Tonight it seemed calm, but inside her was a storm. A group of hunters in the village had come to see her this morning. They didn't directly ask her to chase CUB away, but their words were very clear. "Mira, we understand that you love it, but this is a wolf. If one day it loses control, who will be responsible?" Mira couldn't answer. She bowed down, reaching out to stroke CUB's grey fur. It looked up at her, its yellow eyes as gentle as in the early days. "CUB," she whispered, her voice choking, "I saved you, but maybe you saved me too." CUB lifted its head, gently nuzzling her hand. It didn't know about the comments outside, nor did it know about the worries in her heart. To CUB, Mira was family, the only person it trusted. But Mira knew that things couldn't continue like this forever. She had to make a decision. Mira stayed up all night. She sat by the window, watching CUB sleeping soundly, its breath steady in the faint light of the oil lamp. It was still the CUB she loved, still the little creature she had saved in the storm, but time had changed everything. The next morning, Mira packed a few things into a bag, opened the wooden cage behind the house and called CUB. It came to her, its yellow eyes reflecting the absolute trust it had for her. Mira knelt down, looking deep into those eyes. "Today, I'm going to take you to another place," she said, her voice choking. CUB tilted its head, not understanding her meaning. It didn't know that this would be their last journey together. Mira drove for 2 hours, passing through bumpy dirt roads, heading towards a sanctuary dedicated to wild wolves. The sanctuary was located deep in the forest, where the wolves could live freely but still be protected from danger from humans. When she arrived, she turned off the engine, but didn't rush to get out. She turned to CUB, her hand trembling as she stroked its thick grey fur. "This place will be safe for you," she whispered. "Here, you can live true to your nature without fear." CUB still looked at her, its eyes sparkling with innocent trust, as if it didn't know that she was about to leave it. Mira opened the car door. She got out, knelt down beside CUB, and for the first time in years she burst into tears. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, hugging it tightly. "I love you, but I can't keep you forever." She unhooked the leash, placed her hand on its head as a farewell. "Go, CUB." But CUB didn't go. It just stood there, looking at her, its yellow eyes shining with hesitation. It didn't understand. It didn't know why Mira was pushing it away. Mira squeezed her hand. "Go!" Her voice broke. Kiba startled. It hesitated for a moment, then slowly backed away. It turned its head towards the green forest, its ears perked up, feeling the scent of freedom. And then it ran. Mira watched its light grey figure, each step getting farther and farther away, until it blended into nature, becoming a part of the forest to which it belonged. She collapsed, tears falling silently on her cheeks. She had lost Kiba, but she knew she had done the right thing. A year passed. Mira still lived in the small house on the edge of the forest, but life was no longer the same. She no longer heard Kiba's footsteps running around the house, no longer saw it clinging to her every morning. Sometimes on quiet nights she would remember its warm yellow eyes, remember the soft feel of its grey fur whenever she stroked it, but she didn't regret it. One day she decided to return to the sanctuary, just to take a look to see if Kiba was all right. When she arrived, the caretaker of the sanctuary smiled, leading her to a small forest where the wolves were running freely. Mira stood still, taking a deep breath. Then, from afar, a familiar figure appeared. Kiba. It was bigger, stronger, but the yellow eyes were still the same as before, and when Mira called its name for a moment, she saw its ears twitch. It stopped, turning its head towards her. Mira's heart stopped beating. Did it still remember her, or had time erased everything? But then Kiba rushed forward. It ran as if there had never been a distance, as if there had never been a separation. Mira knelt down, and for a brief second, Kiba buried its head in her lap, nuzzling her hand as it had done in the old days. She smiled, tears streaming down her face. It still remembered her. No matter how much time passed, no matter how far the distance, their hearts would forever belong to each other.